tiger hunt. Becky was staring out of the window. "What are you doing?" said Miss Rose angrily. "I saw something strange over by the wood," said Becky. Miss Rose looked at Becky. "What sort of something?" she said. "I think it was a tiger," said Becky. Everyone ran to the window. "Sit down at once," said Miss Rose. And she was still angry. "There isn't a tiger in the woods," she said. "We don't have tigers in this county." Becky grinned at me. "I was only joking," she whispered. I didn't grin back, because I really did see something. Just then Kathy Moon burst into the classroom. "Late again, Kathy," said Miss Rose sternly. "That's the third time this week. Would you come and look for the tiger with me at playtime?" I whispered to Becky. "There isn't a tiger," said Becky. "I was joking. Please," I said. "All right then, just this one," said Becky. "Where do tigers live?" At playtime, Becky and I went over to the wood together. We waited and waited, but we didn't hear any tigers. "Let's go," said Becky. "There's no tiger here." Suddenly I saw something. "Look," I said, "over there." There was something orange and fluffy hanging on a bush. "It's tiger fur," whispered Becky. There is a tiger after all." Just then the bell rang. "We have to go back now," said Becky. "Let's come back at lunchtime," I said. At lunchtime, we sat beside Matt Clark because he knows all about tigers. "Do tigers eat people?" I asked. "They like to eat people best of all," said Matt. Suddenly, I didn't want to go into the wood again. Matt, Becky, and I went back to the wood. We kept close together. Suddenly, Matt stopped. "What was that?" he whispered. Then we saw it. It was orange and had stripes. It was creeping through the bushes. All three of us screamed. We turned and ran straight into Mrs. Rose. "What are you doing?" said Mrs. Rose suddenly. "We saw a tiger," I gasped, "in the wood," and said Becky. "We are lucky to be alive," said Matt, "because tigers can pounce from 20 meters. They bounce forward suddenly, baring their claws. They bound forwards, suddenly baring their claws. Then they bite your neck." "That will do," said Mrs. Rose. "I told you all before. There is no tiger in the wood." She marched off into the wood. "Goodbye, Mrs. Rose," we whispered, and we closed our eyes and waited for the scream. But we didn't hear a scream. We heard Mrs. Rose demand, "Come out at once." "Come out at once. Come out at once. Come out at once. Come out at once." Kathy Moon came out of the wood. She was carrying a ginger cat. I was feeding my cat, Mrs. Rose," said Kathy. "I feed her in the morning before school and at lunchtime. I keep her in the wood because my mum says I can't take her home." Wee, 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 wee. Mrs. Rose looked at Kathy for a long time. "The cat could live at my house," said Mrs. Rose. "You live me, don't you, Kathy? You could come and visit her." Miss Rose didn't sound angry anymore. What's your cat called? I asked. Tiger, said Kathy. So there was a tiger in the woods after all, grinned Becky. Mrs. Rose stroked Tiger's striped ears. Tiger purred and purred. Poor little tiger, whispered Mrs. Rose. She didn't sound angry at all. Miss Rose took Tiger from Kathy. She put one arm around Kathy's shoulder. Come on, she said. Let's take Tiger into school. Becky, Matt, and I followed them. Suddenly, Becky shouted, There's something strange in the sky. We all looked up. Only joking, she laughed. I didn't laugh back. Because I really did see something.